And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, Vietnam. No, wrong movie. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. And it is Coffee Talk live on YouTube at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And you can find me there at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University, two channels simultaneously, as well as X, formerly known as Twitter. And that would be at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter, as well as fistfulofradio.com, which is a podcasting service out of Atlanta. And there I am Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And of course, since there is a live portion and people can comment, I do try to read as many comments as is reasonable during the live portion. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have joined us thus far. I see Helter is here today. Dragon is here. Brian is there. Boogers is there. Velvet Pilot. Urban Angst so far has chimed in to say hello this morning, this afternoon, wherever they are. There's different places in the world, different time zones, so on and so forth. And I have three felines in the room today. Three felines. You can see Dusty, you can't see the other two. As we get ready to take a look at what is going on in the news today. I see Nature Nerd is here. It says it even showed in Florida this week the green agenda must be making things colder. Yeah, green agenda is making things colder. And WCM is here, as well as Broken Gardening, and Raccoon Eyes has joined us this afternoon. Well, afternoon where I am, and a double secret location on double secret probation is Granny Smith. If you hear a lot of noise, that's Granny Smith there playing on the floor with Dusty's favorite toy. That's Dusty's favorite toy, actually. She loves that thing. She drags it all over the house, and there's Dusty sitting in the chair watching, probably pissed off that Granny Smith is touching it. And All People has joined us here today. Glad you could make it. As we get ready to go here, just a reminder that this is on the books right now. And this is an article. I think this is the Associated. Is this the Associated? No, State of the Union. State of the Union article. We talked about this last week. Lawmakers plan possible infringement of Second Amendment with prohibition on militias. And this is the law that they're proposing as it is written is extremely vague. Extremely vague. It's totalitarianism at its best. It'll likely not go through. But the fact that they would even propose it is scary. So here we go. And listen to this title. The, quote, Preventing Private Paramilitary Activity Act. You got to love these names that they... Good Lord. You got to love these names that they come up with. Has been introduced by Democratic Senator Edward Markey and co-sponsored by Maryland Democratic Representative Jamie Raskin. The bill aims to outlaw state militias, citing the events of January 6th as the reason for its proposal. The legislation is criticized as unnecessary, as all 50 states already have laws restricting private paramilitary activity. Senator Markey wrote in a statement 3 years ago, while supremacists affiliated with paramilitary organizations stormed the U.S. Capitol, shattering windows, walls, and the families of 5 U.S. Capitol police officers. What? I know that I think 5 Capitol police officers killed themselves, which is extremely suspicious that they committed suicide before the trial. Quote, private paramilitary actors such as the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers pose a serious threat to democracy and the rule of law, and we must create new prohibitions on their unauthorized activities that interfere with the exercise of people's constitutional rights. The forces of bigotry, hatred, and violent extremism must be stopped for the sake of our democracy, he continues. What a blowhard. What a blowhard. Now, it doesn't tell you in this article, because I'm running ahead on it a little bit here and just kind of scanning it, what the rules are in this so-called Preventing Private Paramilitary Activity Act. It doesn't really tell you, but I'll tell you. It cites basically that any 3 or more people that get together for any kind of training exercise that could be construed as being military in any facet will violate that law. So, I mean, in theory, depending upon how far they want to push it, again, that's very vague. So it's got an extremely broad spectrum. If you and 2 of your buddies go out to the shooting range and practice long distance shooting at targets together, a lot of people own firearms just because they like target practice. You and 2 of your buddies go out to the target range. Now you're in violation of federal law if they want to push it, and you could go to jail. The law is absolutely preposterous. 3 or more people training together with anything. You could accuse Boy Scouts of doing that. Well, maybe not nowadays, since the Boy Scouts are like weak and pathetic. It's not like the history of the Boy Scouts. The history of the Boy Scouts is dead. Boy Scouts are dead. That's a whole different topic of discussion. But back in the old days, you could accuse 3 Boy Scouts of being in the woods with a scoutmaster learning to start a fire from scratch of paramilitary activity under this bill and put them in prison. Bob 67 is here. Glad you could make it, as well as D-Lo has joined us here today. But this law is absolutely ridiculous. And it is an infringement of the Second Amendment, absolutely. But then every gun law, no matter what it is, no matter what you say it's for, and I'm not condoning people using firearms inappropriately, but any gun law is already an infringement of the Second Amendment, period. It already is. We got hundreds of them on the books in every state, some more extreme than others. Come on. But there's still an infringement. Cruising says any leftists at the gun range by themselves could now be guilty of paramilitary activity once you count all their personalities. Oh, no. Okay. And Henry says this would basically eliminate defensive firearm training classes at local ranges. That's a great point, because what are you doing? You have a firearms class. You got an instructor with, say, 10, 12 people. And, paramilitary activity. You're all going to jail. You don't know how far they could stretch that, how broad they could make it. It could get really out of control. Helter says back in the 50s, kids could bring guns to school for marksmanship's club. That's right. That is right. They were responsible and mature enough to handle firearms. Today, not so much. No. And it got worse when you took that away. It got much worse when you took that away. So I'm sure most of you, some of you might be old enough. Do you remember any of the kind of things that go on in these public schools now happening when you were in school? You ever heard of a school shooting incident when you were in school in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s, to a point? It's a very modern problem, and it has nothing to do with the guns. All people say goodbye to dads taking their college-age sons and nephews on camping, hunting, and fishing trips, since military practices are used for those if this goes through. Yeah. I can't see it going through, but people need to be aware of just how much they are trying to screw all of you over to keep you safe. They're trying to keep you safe, people. Can't you understand? Can't you understand that? We're trying to keep you safe, and we're trying to protect the children. Merv says Boy Scouts are some of the most productive, well-mannered patriots of this country. God bless the Boy Scouts of America. Are they really that anymore, though, Merv? Or maybe they're different where you are. I'm not trying to be evil, but Boy Scouts has changed quite a bit over the last few years. And All People says no more off-campus ROTC practices. Yeah, off-campus, good for pointing that out, because ROTC would be allowed as long as whatever they're doing is authorized, because military and police activities would be authorized. And Delo says they are not. I assume you're talking about the Boy Scouts. Next article from Axios. All right, and this is important. Here's Fannie Willis again. Wow, she looks awful. She looks like she's made out of bread dough. Excuse me. And keep my personal opinions aside here. Judge orders evidence hearing over alleged misconduct by Fannie Willis. So you can pretty much, between this and the next article, which is connected to it, this case is pretty much screwed. And they may as well just shut it down and leave Trump alone. So here we go. A Georgia judge on Thursday scheduled an evidentiary hearing regarding allegations of misconduct against Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis per a court filing. The big picture. Willis, who is overseeing the case involving former President Trump and several co-defendants over alleged Georgia election interference, was recently accused of partaking in an improper, clandestine personal relationship with the case's lead prosecutor, Nathan Wade. Yeah, it looks like that's true. Judge Scott McAfee of Fulton County Superior Court scheduled the hearing for February 15th and set a deadline of February 2nd for the district attorney's office to respond to the motion. Michael Roman, one of the co-defendants in the Georgia election interference case, brought forth the allegations earlier this month. Roman asked the court to dismiss the indictment against him and disqualify Willis, Wade, and their respective offices and firms from any further involvement in the prosecution of the matter. Roman claimed he had alleged personal relationship between Willis and Wade has resulted in the special prosecutor and in turn the district attorney profiting significantly from this prosecution at the expense of the taxpayers. Apparently this is true. She was having an affair with Wade. Wade is a married man. Wade is now going to the divorce hearings. She has been subpoenaed in those divorce hearings because she is involved. And rumor has it that she has paid him and his law firm nearly $1 million in taxpayer funds to, quote, investigate Trump, which he has barely done. The Georgia co-defendant also claims that instead of handling this case within her office, as she could have done given the influx of C-virus money, she chose to hire a private special prosecutor to preside over the case, which is all true. Roman faces 7 charges, including conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, violating Georgia's RICO Act, and a conspiracy to commit filing false documents. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges. So there it is. There's Fannie again. You know, what's really funny is all these people who are going after Donald Trump are as corrupt or worse than what they claim he is. And we're supposed to trust these people? We're supposed to trust these people. Never mind going after Donald Trump. They go after us. These are the people that preside over our cases when we have to go to court. And we're supposed to trust them. They're honest and transparent. Indeed. Indeed. Merv says the woke crowd is trying to infiltrate them, talking about the Boy Scouts again, I believe. Raccoon says, didn't they merge with Girl Scouts because membership went down? No, they allowed girls to enter the Boy Scouts, but I don't think they're merged with the Girl Scouts specifically. Yeah. And I see Cyberjack Sr. has joined us here today. Thanks for joining us. Merv says, Big Dirty Fannie Willis embezzles taxpayer money. It's a crime. Yeah, well, it is, and we'll see where it goes. And Booker said, should the Trump case be thrown out now because of her misconduct? It technically should. And this is about to get even more messy And you'll see why here in a minute when I open up the next article. Monkey says the judge thinks she's slick and nothing will happen to her. Well, to her shock, she's not in the top Democrat club to be immune to a crime. And All People says, do you think anything will happen to the Pillsbury Doughgirls Fannie Willis law license since she may have violated RICO, or will she get protected? How about her guy pal? If they can prove conspiracy between the two, he'll lose his law license and she'll lose her job as prosecutor. That's what should happen. Never mind any jail time. At the very least, they should lose their licenses. And Dragon says this is a sad commentary on public officials plagued by bad judgment and unprofessional conduct. Corruption is normal behavior for these people. Yeah, she had an affair with a married man. Covered it up. She's in a lot of trouble for that. And set up her, quote, boyfriend to get paid a fortune in taxpayer funds to half-ass investigate Donald Trump, and has gotten nowhere with it and really hasn't even done it. But, you know, and the numbers that I saw were up to $645,000 that his law office has been paid so far for a couple of meetings, really, when you break it down. And then rumor has it it's up to actually $1 million. Up to $1 million. And All People said she had to pay some mediocre ambulance chasing attorney $1 million to sleep with her. Maybe that's what it is. Urban says we can trust these people to do exactly what they claim Trump would do because they have the crystal balls. Yeah. And Monkey says now Trump can use this for rallying with the judge being under some major trouble. As I catch up a couple more comments here, Merv says Big Fannie Willis is about to experience the boomerang effect. Yeah, she's not important enough to be protected. Because, you know, people do stuff like this and they get away with murder. They get away with murder, and it's damn near impossible to make them own up to it or pay for it. She's not that important. And she made a major play to suck up to this party, to be in with the in crowd, and blew it. They're not gonna take care of her. They eat their own. Monkey says it makes him look like he's being targeted, and he is being targeted. But this does expose it, and it adds credibility. Like I've said, you know, as much as they're trying to get rid of him, everything they do to try to hold Donald Trump back lends credibility to his claims. You can look at him and say, yeah, man, they're really after this guy. They're really making shit up to try to destroy him. And since so many of us in the United States, and this goes for really the rest of the Western world too, but, you know, specifically in the United States, most of us have experienced this, dealing with law enforcement, dealing with courts. You know, you've been to court and felt screwed. You know, have you dealt with law enforcement and felt screwed because you didn't really do anything wrong, or what you did wasn't all that bad, and they just crushed you anyways and didn't have to, or lied to mess you over? There's a lot of people in that position, you know, and I'm not trying to make up excuses for people that legitimately did something wrong and got caught up. But there are a lot of people who did no wrong and got crushed. And, you know, I could refer back to my own court experiences with family court. Many of you already know those stories. Look what happened with my first ex and the two boys. 4 years. They just handed her custody. Courts ran me over. Excuse me. They ran me over and then begged for me to take them back when they found out she had been abusing them the whole time. 4 years of abuse and neglect could have been avoided if they would just listen. And I'm supposed to trust this system? Are you serious? Look at the other situations that I went through. When I talked about getting black bagged in 2003. I'm being harassed by the FBI Why? Because of an accusation that they knew wasn't true when they snatched me in the courthouse? And I'm supposed to trust this system. And now, so watching them go after him, which he's in a better position to defend himself than you and I are, I can empathize with what he's dealing with. I just can't afford to fight it like he can. Excuse me. All People says both should lose their law license. Someone said adultery is still a crime in Georgia. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it is. It should be. Urban says, I'm sure she'll do fine, especially if Netflix comes calling. And D-Lo thinks I'm damn right. Well, thanks. I'm glad somebody does. Monkey says, I can predict they would pull a nuclear option and doing a little John F. Kennedying him. Ugh. So we'll go ahead and we'll move on. And this kind of ties in a little bit here. This is interesting. And it's also about Donald Trump. Here we go. And this is from 2 paragraphs. Good luck finding this story. Judge refuses Trump access to January 6 documents because they don't actually exist. They don't exist, folks. Oh, man. Excuse me. Couple more comments here real quick and I'll move on. Urban says, I wonder what percentage of running expenses are spent on protection. At this point, he's probably the most wanted man in the world. TDS is a powerful motivator. And Merv says, embezzling taxpayer money, big Fannie Willis, great example of money well spent. It's all misspent. Most tax money is misspent. Some of it I can understand. You're fixing the roads. I'm happy with that. You're paying firemen. I'm happy with that. You get the idea. But most of what they spend tax money on is embarrassing. Anyway, we'll get into the article here. And again, this is from 2 paragraphs. Former President Donald Trump's lawyers in Fulton County, Georgia, remember I said this is going to tie in, have been making much of the allegedly secret cooperation between Georgia prosecutors and the House January 6 Select Committee, asserting that the committee shared evidence with Fulton County's district attorney's office that Trump's team was not privy to. Now, remember, the executive branch denied that they had any contact with Fannie Willis or her attorney. Okay, Wade that we were just talking about. But there is documentation that proves that he had been there twice and had 2 8-hour meetings with them. Now, because there is evidence that he was there and did have a meeting or 2 meetings on 2 different occasions, Trump's attorney says, we have a right to see what that documentation is. So here we go. Getting back to the article. As a result, Trump filed a motion to compel the prosecution to share the materials. Quote, non-public evidence shared with investigators by the January 6th committee, so it could better prepare for evidence that will be presented by the prosecution at trial. The Georgia Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee, considering the motions, responded this week that Trump could not have the materials in question, not because he wasn't entitled, but because the materials apparently do not exist. District Attorney Willis seems to have addressed the existence of non-public information, or at least denied that the House Judiciary Committee would be given access to such materials in a letter to committee chair Jim Jordan in December. Despite much suspicion expressed in the comments, sure to be inflamed by MAGA adherents, the key term in McAfee's denial of the motion appears to be non-public. All right. So now Fannie Willis says there are no documents. So then the judge says they tell me there are no documents, so I can't give you anything if they don't exist. So either the White House lied, or Fannie Willis lied, or the judge is lying now. That alone is grounds to throw this out. And between this and what's going on with Fannie, this case is pretty much blown. That's it. This, if it was me in court, this would have been thrown out already. Technically speaking, unless they just really had it in for me. Eric Peter says that's what I've been reading and listening to, that with the witch hunts and court proceedings, which seem to be politically motivated, the average Joe can relate, especially in our voters. Yeah, because again, anybody who's had to deal with court and they weren't guilty, or what they did wasn't all that bad, but got hammered in court, doesn't trust the system. They don't trust them. And you can look at this and totally empathize. Damn, I went through something like this. I get it. Nature Nerd says the Trust a Game of Greed on Netflix is crazy, where 11 people vote off an island or share for 250,000. Everyone is lying to each other and goes irate. I bet any reality show, though, very likely staged. Very likely staged. And, I'll throw it back out there again for those of you who are not on the know. I was selected to be on season 2 of American Grit with John Cena. And I made it clear I wasn't comfortable because it was very heavily scripted. It's supposed to be a reality show, and it's supposed to be obstacle courses. And the first season, you saw a lot of obstacle courses, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I can do that." My wife and I do that kind of stuff. So, second season comes around, and very heavily scripted, extremely phony. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not comfortable," and they booted me. I didn't get back past further than interviews with show producers. I've talked about that before, or whoever the hell it is, the director of I forget who the hell I talked to, but anyways, you get the idea. The show is a fraud. All of these reality shows are. Excuse me. Urban says, is Scott McAfee related to the late John McAfee? I have no idea. And Monkey says, if there's no documents, then what's the point of the court case if there's no evidence? To waste time and to delay him and to tie him up so that he can't campaign properly. Monkey says it's literally wasting taxpayer money. I would love to know how much this case is costing taxpayers in Georgia. Never mind the $1 million that she paid her boyfriend. Never mind that. How much is it costing to go to court? How much is it costing for the staff? How much is it costing for the investigation? Never mind Trump's costs. What are the taxpayers paying for this charade? It's embarrassing. Dragon says it's more proof of the two-tier justice system. A judge would have thrown anyone else right into a cell for contempt. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah, and this is there's obviously something really screwy going on here. Somebody's lying. Fannie Willis is lying. The January 6th committee on the executive branch at the White House is lying. Or McAfee's lying right now. One of them is lying. Or more than one of them is lying. Either way, it's already, that's already a mistrial. Technically, it should be a mistrial as far as I understand it. And All People says, wow. What are you wowing, All People? What's the wow for? I'm curious. But that's what's going on with Trump and January 6th and all of that. It's a big fraud. The woman, she's messing around with a married man. Set him up with taxpayer funds. You scratch my back and I'll rub yours, apparently, or something. he must have been pretty damn good. Let's just put it that way, because damn, that $1 million payoff. American Gigolo, anyone? Oh man. And here most guys are giving it away for free. As we get ready to look at the next article, and I'll catch up All People here. He says pretty much every one of the reality shows, just like those dreadful 90s and early 2000s daytime talk shows, have been proven to be scripted. Yeah, they're all frauds. Those shows are fake. Those shows are all fake. Even the stuff you see like on when you watch YouTube videos of like pranks and things like that, they're all staged. They're all phony. The worst ones, in my opinion, are the ones where they try to show something social, like you give a bum a pizza. Yeah, you might have seen that one. The pawn shop with the guitar and or the bike, and hey, you stole my bike. I don't know if some of you might have seen some of these things. They're all staged. They're all like college film projects and crap. They're as phony as it gets. You can't trust any of this crap now. Oh yeah, all people. They threw me. They never even got to a take. You know, this is all phone interviews, and they were like, "Okay, well, we'll get back to you." When I said, "I don't need to follow a script. What script? What am I? Who am I supposed to?" Because you see on the second season, they got more trashy with it. People were naked. They had somebody having an affair and garbage like that. And it's like, man, I want to run obstacle courses. That's what you told me it was. Now you're talking about scripts and pretending to have an affair and all this other stuff. I'm not going to bullshit people. I don't care how much you're going to pay me. And you're talking about for the purpose of personal integrity, turning down like 60 grand. Never mind, quote, fake winning the show or whatever bullshit, you know, because you have to be paid as an actor. Anyways, let me see. Monkey says I might tinfoil hat this, but I think some entity has to be ordering them to do so. And ordering them to keep Trump tied up. I'm sure. And like I said, she's probably trying to get in with the in crowd, trying to be down with the boys. Down with the boys. Oh, yeah, I'm going to be a big Democrat. I'm going to get paid big dollars. I'm going to tie up Trump and you're going to owe me. And they're like, yeah, Fanny, we're going to take good care of you. But she blew it. Now they're not going to cover for her. They're not going to cover for her. One more. Raccoon says, after all this jazz he's going through, can Trump sue for defamation of character and also funds lost in this sham litigation? He could countersue for losses. Unfortunately, the problem with that, Raccoon, is if he wins a hearing like that and the state has to pay him back for his technical losses, that's more taxpayer money because it's not going to come out of the judge's pocket. That comes from the county coffers. That comes from the state money and the city and county money. So that's taxpayer money down the tubes when that happens. Anytime the city, state, county, federal is sued, it's tax money because they don't have any actual money of their own. As we crack into this next one, another crazy judge. LA Times. Judge tells Beverly Hills homeowners no housing improvements without more affordable housing. And here's a shot of Beverly Hills. You all know what Beverly Hills is and what it represents. But apparently, in Millionaires Row, there's not enough affordable housing. So he's not going to allow for any building project permits to be authorized. So here we go. Projects that cross the transom of the Beverly Hills Building Department include the extravagant pool grottos and bowling alleys, as well as the more quotidian kitchen and living room upgrades. In recent months, the city approved a $100,000 basement spa in the $125 million mega mansion owned by WhatsApp co-founder Jan Koum. Exterior upgrades for an $80,000 a month rental and $130,000 kitchen and bathroom remodel in a home purchased a week before for $6.7 million. Now, any similar home improvements desired by Beverly Hills property owners are under threat. Last month, Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Curtis A. Kinn blocked the city from issuing all building permits except for new residential development as a penalty for Beverly Hills' failure to approve a sufficient blueprint for affordable housing. Because, you know, when you own a $125 million mansion and the guy next door owns a $180 million mansion. What you really want is a housing project across the street. Officials are appealing the decision and say they are continuing to process permits as normal, but the potential ramifications on home and business owners and the construction industry have left civic leaders aghast. Because, not everybody's building a damned bowling alley here, okay? Not everybody's building a bowling alley. It could be repairs that are necessary. Somebody could have a damaged driveway. There's a lot of mudslides in California. Somebody could have a roof that's in disrepair and they need to have it reshingled. Somebody could have broken windows and they need them replaced. And you need permits for those in Los Angeles County and in Beverly Hills. So if strong winds broke all my windows, I can't get them fixed because there's no affordable housing in a neighborhood where the houses are all in upwards of millions of dollars. Does that make any damn sense? Does that make any damned sense at all? Let me catch up a couple of comments. Urban says the best survival reality show is Naked and Afraid. It's still fake. Merv says TDS makes Dirty Fanny Willis Kitty crazy. Cruising said, I wanted to do Alone, but I never got past the interviews. Same thing. How would you feel not being near your family for 3 weeks? And questions like that, like, I don't see them for months anyways. Oh, no. So you went out for a show too? I don't remember Alone. I don't watch a lot of modern TV, though. I really don't bother with most of it. Nature Nerd says, what a waste of taxpayer money these sham Trump court cases are. Indeed. Cruising says, imagine purchasing a home worth more than most neighborhoods and not being able to do what you want in it over some jackass politician. And it's a judge. And judges, it's a very political position. And they're just trying to put a notch in their belt. They're trying to check boxes and act like they're progressive. And they're hurting people. They're hurting people. If those people can afford a home like that and they want to do something to it, what the hell do I care? I don't care what some millionaire put a bowling alley in your basement. But to jam up housing permits, repair permits for anybody under any circumstances, including businesses, because there's no affordable housing in an area where it would be impossible, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Helter says they're just going to do it anyway. No one is going to go around catching these people, and even if they do, they're only going to catch 5% of them who will happily pay whatever lame fine. And Dragon says Beverly Hills is like Belle Vernon City of Industry and many others in LA County that are essentially scam cities run by a tiny minority for their benefit. And Raccoon says metal singer Don Dawkins bought a home next to Gene Simmons, and Gene says to him, so when you going to fix up your house? Yeah. Nature Nerd says Rick Nimblist makes it impossible to build more houses in the city while there is a housing shortage and overpriced apartments, but I bet you people have to rent from them. Yeah, just a couple more here real quick. Merv says, have the Boy Scouts go to Beverly Hills and build a tent city in the park and yards. Yeah, because apparently if you build a tent up somewhere, they can't pull it down. They can't pull it down. But this is more government overreach. A judge trying to pretend to be progressive, stirring up mess, being political, being a jackass. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that this kind of nonsense is allowed to go on. And, by the time it's challenged, I mean, because it can't stand. That can't be allowed to stand for too long. Somebody's going to throw it out. But the fact that they would even try to do it. Urban says Trump would understand very well what's really happening in Beverly Hills and other places. His background and his father's background cover all the city themes of social housing versus high-end lease. And Cruising says in Alone, they drop you off in the wilderness in the north with a small kit, and you have to survive. Whoever doesn't tap out wins $1 million. Catch is the area is usually protected, so laws interfere. Okay. And Urban says, when discussing expensive housing, whatever you do, don't mention the illegal migrations. Yeah, because God forbid they have to live out in the street. Even if they, God forbid, we have to put them up in hotels. We have to put them up in hotels. And if your intelligence hasn't been insulted enough, I get a better one for you. And this is from NBC News. White House cancels $5 billion in student debt for 74,000 borrowers. There goes another five. I bet you my student debt hasn't been canceled. I bet you they didn't help me. Washington and a new wave of student loan forgiveness. And I thought this was blocked, and he got it through again. It's incredible. In a new wave of student loan forgiveness, the Biden administration is canceling $5 billion of your tax money in debt for 74,000 borrowers, many of whom worked in public sector jobs for more than a decade. President Joe Biden said that 44,000 of Friday's approved borrowers were having their educational debt wiped clean after 10 years of public service, and that those borrowers included teachers, nurses, and firefighters. Nearly 30,000 borrowers have worked towards repayment for at least 20 years, but never got the relief they earned through income-driven repayment plans, Biden said in a statement. It's the latest round, because this is the second, right, of loan forgiveness efforts after the Supreme Court struck down the White House's student loan debt relief plan last year. Since the ruling, the White House has launched a series of smaller relief programs. So they were denied by the Supreme Court and did it anyways. Let that sink in. My administration is able to deliver relief to these borrowers and millions more because of fixes we made to broken student loan programs that were preventing borrowers from getting relief they were entitled to under the law. They were entitled to violation of their contract, the contract that they signed. The new cancellations bring the total number of people who have had debt cancellation under the Biden administration to 3.7 million people. Now, here's my problem with it, okay? Here's my problem with it. I have two issues. Obviously, is the fact that somebody's got to pay for this, and that somebody is you and me. All right? The second problem I have with it is right here in this first quotation. President Biden says 44,000, because it's 74,000 borrowers, right? 44,000 of these borrowers are people that have middle-class jobs, teachers, nurses, firefighters. How high on the hog are these people living that they're not able to pay off their student debt after decades? How badly are they misspending their funds? How high sedity are they living that they haven't been able to get around to this? And if they were even paying it at all, because according to this, the other 30,000 borrowers have worked towards repayment for at least 20 years. Okay? So my question would be, since you're saying 30,000 of the 74,000 borrowers have been working towards repayment, does that mean that the 44,000 borrowers who are teachers, nurses, and firefighters, according to the article, haven't been bothering to pay it? Have been ignoring the requests? Because I've seen some of these video clips with people who have admitted that they've never tried to pay the student loans. Going back 30, 40 years, a few people that I saw. That makes no sense. These are people that should have been able to pay, long since pay these off with the jobs that they had. And as you know, I owe on student loans, and I won't pay it. And some of you know why. And just to recap for anybody who doesn't, I owed $2,000. I lost a job. I filed for the hardship thing. They froze it. Again, it was down to $2,000. but then they unlocked the freeze and charged fees, penalties, and interest and told them I owed over $9,000 or something. And I was like, I'm not paying that. Screw you. And I won't pay it, and I won't even make a payment on it until they fix that. And they've never fixed it. Cruising says my loans got cleared on public service after 10 years in, but that was part of the deal of becoming a teacher and taking the loans to go to school for that. I was supposed to get it after 5 years. Okay. And Monkey says, according to calculations, assuming the money was distributed evenly, each person got $67,567. How do you still owe that much after 10, 20 years? Monkey says, out of the 74,000 recipients. Okay. Cruising says there was a huge problem of the forgiveness not being issued for lots of people over nitpicky things, like I didn't get the 5 years because my students don't get served lunch. That's weird. Helter says this fails to address the root. Colleges are charging ridiculous amounts of money to people they know must take out loans. It's exhausting. The bad behavior of colleges. Students are to blame as well. Students are to blame for taking out loans they can't pay or aren't interested in paying, or maybe they don't think they're ever going to bother to pay it. Colleges make tons of money, but they misspend it. Your college or university does not need to hire Michelle Obama to be a guest speaker for 20 minutes and pay her $250,000. To me, that's a waste of money. And they do that. They waste tons of money on programs like that. And I think it's all laundering, quite frankly. Urban says, great deal. Go to a publicly funded school, get a publicly funded loan, get a publicly funded job, publicly funded handout to forgive the loan. Sweet deal. And Cruising says they pay $205 a month for 120 months to qualify. So they paid back $25,000 of the $27,500 that was borrowed, but the forgiveness was for 20, and that's how shitty even 4% interest is. Dragon says Biden is desperately trying every last-ditch effort to garner new voters. This is nothing but pandering at its finest. Yeah, and he won't get them. You know, the thing is, they do stuff like this. A lot of politicians like to do stuff like this, basically spending tax money, throwing it at people because they think in their minds they're buying votes. But you're really only coercing people into voting for you, and there's no guarantee. I'll take, hey, you, Biden, you want to pay my loan? Be my guest. But I'm not voting for you. And quite frankly, I'd really prefer that they didn't, because, again, somebody's got to pay for that. That's coming out of people's taxes. Put my loan where it belongs, and I'll pay it off. Otherwise, to hell with you. But I don't want tax money paying for anything for me. Dragon says, oh, I read that. Excuse me. Merv says, seems like a lot of people that work for the federal government or the city governments are getting their student loan debt paid off. Yeah, it sure does. And Monkey says when they went to college in 2018 till 2023, the Pell Grant paid for it all, and they went to a community college. And Nature Nerd says after the Middle Ages, Europe put a cap on debt, so debt couldn't just skyrocket and adding interest forever. Yeah, because then you become an indentured servant, basically. But this just adds to our overall debt. But there is a solution. There is a solution to the federal debt. You'll love this. And this is from El Paz. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. The federal government, or the federal debt, tops $34 trillion. That's painful. And some in Congress want a commission to find ways to tackle it. Now I understand. We need a commission. A bill to create a bipartisan commission that would tackle the nation's soaring debt and make policy recommendations to Congress. One approval Thursday from a House committee. House Republicans are making the bill a priority, and the chairman of the House Budget Committee said everything is on the table regarding possible action to slow the federal government's increasing level of debt, now at more than $34 trillion. Many Democrats see the commission as an attempt to force cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Social Security and Medicare is not your problem. The bill approved by the GOP Majority Committee by a 22-12 vote would ask the commission to recommend ways to balance the budget at the earliest reasonable date and to improve the long-term solvency of Medicare, Social Security, and other programs paid for through trust funds. The commission would have 16 members, 12 from Congress, evenly divided by party, and 4 outside experts who would not have voting power. Similar commissions have succeeded in the past, but recent ones have mostly failed due to partisan divisions. Yeah, sure, that's the problem. Republicans blame federal spending for the annual deficits, while many Democrats cite tax cuts enacted under Republican administrations. Oh, so I see. So the reason we're in debt is because we're not taxing people enough. Is that the idea? And spending money on another committee to investigate a problem that they already know exists and make recommendations that no one is going to follow is going to solve the problem. I understand now. I was so confused. I thought we were just wasting tax dollars. I thought that was the problem. I thought we were just wasting money. I thought it was because we overspend. I thought because it was because there's no government oversight on spending. Not really. I thought it was because we give money away to pretty much every other country on the planet and get nothing back. Nothing back from these countries except grief and hands begging for more money. I thought it was because money was wasted on programs like pride stuff that the federal government should have nothing to do with. I thought that was it. I thought that was the problem. Excuse me. And money not being spent on things like it should be. Like fixing roads, for example. That's a good thing to spend money on, I think. But no, we can't do that. We have to spend money on committees to examine why there are no pride flags in Nigeria. That's what we have to do. That's that's what needs to be done. And Stacy Lynn is here. Glad you could join us. A little late, but that's okay. It's always saved, and you can always catch it up at another time. Henry says a commission of clueless legislators who will probably get a bump in pay for being on the commission. Here's a hint: stop spending money. Yeah. And once again, real easy to spend money when it's somebody else's. Tax money, yeah, spend it all you want. Who cares? You want a committee to research the gestation periods of hippopotami? Here's a few $1 million. Knock yourself out. There's so much money is wasted on such worthless, ridiculous stuff instead of infrastructure and programs that actually have something to do with the American people. Spend money on the military, I can understand that. Spend money on public school, well, I have an issue with that because public school is a money pit and the kids aren't really learning anything. But if it was doing the job properly, I could understand that. Spending money on police, firefighters, EMTs, I can understand that. Spending money spray painting Black Lives Matter on sidewalks and roads, I can't condone that. It's a waste of taxpayer money. Nature Nerd says America has more tax revenue than any other country in the world. How the hell is spending so much in so much debt? Taxes should cover any other country's projects multiple times over. Because it's misused and misappropriated and misspent. I've said it 100 times. If it was being spent properly, they wouldn't need but half of what they tax us for. Half of it. Half of what they tax us for if they cut all that bullshit out, if they stop sending all this tons of money overseas. A couple of programs here and there I can understand, depends on what it is, but like the billions of dollars that have gone to the Ukraine, something that we probably need to keep our nose out of. The money that gets thrown all over the world, even in the C virus money, where they sent people a check in the U.S. for the pandemic checks that they gave out to everybody. In that package was money for gay rights programs in like Africa and the Middle East and places like that. Why are we doing that? Mind your damn business. This is why every other country hates us. Excuse me. Helter says at the current rate, it's predicted that in 7 years, all tax money taken in will have to go towards interest spending. Cruising says, think it was Sol, but it might have been Teddy Roosevelt that said a nation can't tax itself into prosperity. And that's true. Dragon says, I'd be more worried about Social Security that runs out in 11 years when we have more people retired than working with increased cost of health care. It's not health care, it's health repair. We don't have health care in America. We have health repair. Just want to emphasize on that. If they're fixing it after the fact and not actually fixing it, but in many ways making the situation worse with medications that have terrifying side effects and with procedures that do more damage than good. Like, for example, if you have joint pain, one of the common procedures is to fuse joints and bones together, but that restricts mobility, and the restriction of mobility will cause you to have more pain. So why would you have that procedure? You see what I mean? Urban says the best educational value per tuition is usually to be found in technical institutes. Yeah, I can agree with that. Remember, my son went to Job Corps. Many provide standalone certificates and diplomas with an option to transfer to a university degree program. One thing with that, though, transfer degrees or transferable credits, you'll very often find that most universities throw the majority of it out. They'll take very little. Oh yeah, it's transferable, and you'll show up with like 120 credits, and they'll take like maybe 24 of them. I've seen this happen. All People says one reason we're in debt is due to LBJ's Hart Celler Immigration Expansion Act letting in and Great Society welfare expansion programs. Yeah, they didn't help. Monkey says if Congress can use Job Corps and WIC as a shiny example of taxpayers' money being put to good use, that a lot of things can at least fix something up. Yeah, because Job Corps I don't have a problem with, and WIC I don't have a problem with. I've actually seen those work properly. But yeah, if those, and they've been around for decades. Those programs have been around for a long time, a very long time. If they can be made to work, other programs can be made to work properly as well. Government-run and sanctioned programs can be made to work, not just WIC and Job Corps. So yeah, well, how come those work and nothing else does? Cruising says public school could easily be overhauled to start turning out a good product for 80% of current costs. They need to redo the laws that were passed in the 70s and 80s that are still being enforced. And there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, that's, you already know. Cruising, by the way, is in public school. They work for public school. But you already know there's a bit more to it than that, but probably less than 80%. Most private schools, except for the big Ivy League kind of private schools, most private schools operate at half the budget of a comparable public school and do a much better job overall. But with that, I will go ahead and start wrapping things up as we are at the top of the hour. And of course, you have been listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find me on YouTube, and the monikers for that are at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University Live. Please do check them out if you haven't seen those channels. And at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. In addition to that, you can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. I see Q1C says, been watching since 2014, found you through the UPS videos back in the day. Glad to see you doing well. Well, thank you. Thank you, Q1. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm still hanging in there, So again, thank you to everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will catch you again on Monday.